It's the 12th of January 2022. I'm Dana. I hope you're doing well. We're going to show you pictures, original pictures. It's a complicated story in one sense. That's why we do these types of presentations. There's a listed playlist below of this particular set, and this hopefully is the last video in this particular set, because what you got to do is you got to break down the video for everybody and in layman's terms, right? So you can see how crazy this actually was. There radiation levels around Fukushima nearing levels where humans vomit uncontrollably. This is absurd. Now, we covered it many times before. We covered Harvard University, Yale University, Stanford University, Oxford University, MIT University's original questions and answers type presentations when Fukushima happened about the nuclear. And Harvard University said that you can expect doses several miles away at over 10 sieverts per hour in the air because of the total destruction. And these were nuclear experts at Harvard talking, the original interviews. Those videos are still online at those institutions, by the way. And so the pictures we got, and these are complicated shows. So the pictures they got, we're going to start at number 66, series 66. You can download all the pictures yourself at the link I got for you below. This is the only spot on the entire planet where you're going to find people showing these pictures, actually having a conversation about them. And unfortunately, what we noticed in the last, since we started this particular series, was a hell of a lot of lying, an absurd amount of lying. And so we're talking about 66, which is this one right here. Debris removal around Unit 1, 2 switchyards. And water discharges into Unit 1 is next. And you can see the next set is right there, etc., right? And so they come in sets. The videos or the pictures were allegedly taken on the 2nd of April 2011. 2nd of April 2011. And I was like a half a minute late because I didn't realize I had to change the battery in the Geiger counter. And we can make that a bit smaller on the bottom there. Get rid of some space there. That's in counts per minute. And let's get after it. First off, though, we got a poll. Let's talk about that for a second. Dana's. Oh, yeah, she might as well stay there, should I? The poll. Hi, everybody. And the poll. Where are you two, Dana? Here we go. Should the victims who worked at the Fukushima nuclear meltdown for one single day get a pension for life? We got 21 votes, 95% of the people understand, and the other 5% obviously doesn't. And how's everybody doing tonight? We got Colette, Lori, I only served one king, Nancy, cough mixture, Dana Nasana. Yeah, one day at Hanford gets you a pension. Thank you. Sandra, hi everybody. Hope everybody's doing good. And so this particular, that's what I was just going to bring up, and Dana Nasana beat me to it, was that, we'll bring up the pictures here, was Hanford had passed a law that if you worked one day at Hanford in the last 60 years or so, you were actually entitled to a pension if you got sick, which should obviously if you worked at Fukushima, each day you worked at Fukushima, you should get a separate pension because you were brutally irradiated. And this person, and I'm not laughing, this is the gallows laugh for both of these. He's walking, and both of these are in paper suits. Now, TEPCO burns around 7,000 paper suits every day. People says, no, Dana, that's radioactive protection equipment. Go away. The teacher will still give you points for spamming the internet, but just don't do it to me because I'm not going to put up with it. He's walking around, I'm assuming it's a he, walking around on steel plates. And they're typically 4 feet by 16-foot steel plates. We've been covering this for many years. There's most likely the worst job you can get is going around, and the green stuff you're seeing is a reagent, a bonding agent that they sprayed around the site to stop the emitters from hemorrhaging isotopes because the fuel pellets were puked all over. They were found up to 10 miles away, even further, actual pellets. Or parts of the pellets, right? Okay, so what he's doing there, pointing down to something he's pointing at something that's real hot because he stood in a hot zone, okay? So that's important. We'll come back to that picture again. This is probably going to be one of the strangest pictures you're ever going to see. It's hard to wrap your mind around it, but he's got a broom. He's got like these big birchy brooms. We used to make them for when I was a kid traditionally, right? I grew up in a place with no automobiles. And so stuff like that stands out for me. Where you make your own brooms. And they're not birchy brooms, they're cedar brooms most likely. But it's just a terminology that's really familiar for me. Now, what's strange about it is you got multiple nuclear meltdowns in the background. This is originally supposed to be taken on April the 2nd, 2011, which is 22 days after the tsunami. And this is absurdness. So these are obviously homeless people. These are not nuclear engineers or nuclear scientists or nuclear academics. I'm just trying to set the stage for you. And in order to keep doing that, we got to come back to the desktop one more time. There, desktop. I'm just going to flick through a few headlines that we covered at this picture that I just showed you. The picture I just showed you. The picture I just showed you there is where we left off a couple of days ago on number 5. This is number 6 of 6 presentations on this. But quickly, let me introduce you to the magnitude of what we're talking about. They're sweeping it up. But meanwhile, radiation doses were so heavy around Fukushima in the communities, your hairs were stripped from your body and people would vomit uncontrollably. Air samples in Tokyo were 270 times more contaminated with cesium. They're just talking gamma, and they're not, and you'll see this constantly where they won't acknowledge alpha or beta or neutrons because, you know, the population is only familiar basically with cesium and iodine through endless propaganda, through movies, TV, Hollywood, through your universities, your schools, have all been captured, by the way, by the nuclear industry in increments over decades. Water cannons unable to spray the reactors turn away because radiation is too high. High radiation levels prevented the helicopters from, but people are up there sweeping radiation. So I'll come back to that in a minute. Let me just finish off these few to get you up to speed. Research is too frightened to get closer than 100 kilometers from the meltdown. And rightfully so, and accurately so. These things had when China syndrome hit. What that meant was that they started going down into the earth, and we know they hit the water tables because the earth was split in many places, but recorded in 6 places it was split from these detonations underground because water expands 1,400 feet per second, per liter rather, in an instant. And we're talking about enormous amounts of fuel, and, you know, tens of millions of pounds of fuel missing. It dwarfs Chernobyl because on top of that, it was pure uranium, pure plutonium. We'll get into that. High radiation forces withdrawal workers trying to restore power on the 18th. It's trying to make a geyser squad. The TEPCO admits it will run out of workers in 5 years. Vice Governor suggests Fukushima draft all of Japan must face it. Those 60 and older should be prepared to die at the Fukushima plant. And that's what you're actually seeing there is what they call sponges, where they send in day workers, temporary workers, destitute people that take these incredible dangerous jobs for a day's pay cash. These are homeless and the destitute, the victims of society, the victims of our society, by the way. This is the strangest picture imaginable because they're sweeping with ongoing multiple nuclear meltdowns in the background. And this is an authentic picture because you can tell. Remember, in 2011, the technology wasn't very good, so it's hard to put two different cameras into one picture. It stands out, right? They all should look equally faded, for instance, is one way you look at it. This is a frightening, unimaginably frightening job. These people most likely would have died that day or that week, anybody was doing something like that. And why would you sweep the road? That's the last. I showed you the cover picture where they had sprayed regions because of radiation. Does anybody really think radiation didn't permeate that entire area? And prolific amounts of it? I think these are just incredibly terrifying pictures. And I think everybody should have that, I'll get my head out of there, but everybody should have that framed under a wall to tell everybody how heartless and soulless. Send people in with a paper suit into a nuclear meltdown and give them brooms. This is absurdity. It really is. You wouldn't, I can understand people not believing that the picture is real. That doesn't bother me. Actually, nothing bothers me after all these years doing this. Nothing surprises me in one sense of cruelty, and that's from the nuclear industry. As you start looking at every facet of the nuclear industry, you just see this one uniform thing is cruelness and ruthlessness and heartlessness and soullessness and spinelessness actions from these so-called people. It's hard to, it'd be hard to prove that in a science. And so a lot of the pictures are, not a lot, but the majority of the pictures might be blurred. But remember, technology was only 1 or 2 megapixel cameras at that time, and that they were under duress. You're huge radiation and you're only wearing a paper suit. And so a lot of these pictures were taken from a car that was also moving, or a truck or some type of vehicle. And that you'll see many symbols of that, like right here where there's something close to them is blurred, which could be a car mirror or something like that. And that wouldn't have been the tsunami, that would have been the detonation from the reactors would have caused that particular damage, because that's up very high. I could be wrong. We do know the tsunami got up to 110, 120 foot in some places. And so these pictures were released in early 2011, and what they were trying to do was pacify the planet. So they put out for 1,800 pictures, I think it was. I got them listed and linked below so you can actually download them yourselves. But if you were in that position, would you release now there's another playlist on my site of 736 pictures that were released this year. They were all redacted, pixelated pictures from a drone footage, very high quality, thank goodness. We were able to zoom in and extrapolate pixelated buildings. It's an amazing story. If you won't find it anywhere else, unfortunately. Okay, and so you can see this red depiction of let's say, cement pump, which is different than pumping water. Pumping cement is a completely different. So theoretically, they might have hoses strapped to it. But we do know they had cameras strapped to it, and so we got some close-up footage coming up of Reactor 4 taken from cameras at the top of this cement truck. Now the doses here are all over the place, up to 1 million sieverts per hour out in front of Reactor 1, hundreds of sieverts in other places. Those stacks you see in the background, you can see those tall stacks. They're for the fuel pools and the incinerators, by the way, on the site. And this is where they released fuel pool emissions from the reactor core fuel pools. You couldn't get close to the base of the, even today, you can't get close to those stacks because they're 10 to 25 sieverts at ground level. So how can you get close to the reactors, right? Where you had multiple nuclear meltdowns. This is reactor, I think this one is reactor 3. This is 67. Just let me bring it up for you before I open my mouth. Because it looks like, so 67 main discharges into unit 2. And this is 6705, so that's not unit 2. It's probably unit 3 or unit 4, most likely unit 3, but let's work, that is unit 3 for sure. That's unit 1. This is what they, so we're still at 67. So water discharges into unit 1. Now the detonation from unit 1, I'm going to bring up a video of that detonating, because otherwise it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard. I'll get it out of the way here. This is the unit 1 you see it detonating. Now that's a 190-story building. Let's do that again. Right, and so you can see the incredible pulse. So each of those square buildings are 190-story buildings, and that one that just popped was reactor 1. So that explosion was the building inside of that Kevlar containment you're looking at. And you're talking about 1 million sieverts per hour outside of that building. And obviously you can understand why, because the building detonated. At the top of the building was the fuel pools. Did you see the detonation that goes up? I can actually slow it down to say, I can slow it down to 25%. This is going to be 50%. Right, and so you can see this puff that goes up a mile or so. And that was the fuel pool being ejected from the reactor core. So this is allegedly inside, or this is the same building up here. And so they're allegedly putting water in the fuel pool, which was at the top of the building. And it's not there for sure. That's not maybe either. That's for sure, because you're just seeing the detonation of the top of that building. That was an incredible detonation, right? That was a very, very powerful. And these buildings, of course, those beams you see up there, you can actually turn an SUV around on that. You can turn a 1-ton pickup truck around on the beams you're looking at up there. And so there was an incredible amount of heat went on there. There was also a major fire there. The detonation was from the meltdown, and the meltdown caused a buildup of hydrogen, nuclear hydrogen gas, and then it displaces all the oxygen. When oxygen gets introduced in there, or spark, that'll detonate the hydrogen. So it just needs oxygen to detonate. So these cement trucks were brought in, and I don't see a hose on that pipe. Now, they can only pump around 300 tons a day. Each reactor needs around 4,500 tons a minute. So 300 tons a day is not going to replace a 4,500 1-ton pickup trucks of water every 60 seconds. Just like, don't quote me, it's like 36 a second or something, pickup trucks of water. And so the whole idea was to trick the population of the planet into thinking that they got a handle on it. And that started immediately. And a lot of the footage you get was very grainy. And a lot of these pictures for the average person has absolutely no meaning, obviously, whatsoever. And because you're not going to find these pictures anywhere else, it's very time consuming. On top of that, to try to articulate every single picture, that can't happen. So this is supposed to be the pump house. This is 69. And we're going to just fly through this tonight because this is number 6 in the series, and we got to move on. We had to redo these pictures because YouTube took down my channel 4 months ago or more, randomly, with no emails and no strikes or no explanation after. Just disappeared the channel, and these don't exist online anymore, so I have to repost them online. At the time, I was on a species count 400 kilometers away, camping out in the woods for many days. I was gone for like, I don't know how many weeks anyway, camping. I was traveling, looking for spiders, looking for insects, looking for birds because of the Fukushima radioactive fallout. We were seeing and recording an extinction level event. So 69 measures to prevent contaminated water leakage near Unit 2. That's the very last thing. Now remember, we started off tonight with people with brooms right alongside of active meltdowns. These pictures are obviously not taken on the date that they're claiming. This particular set they're claiming is taken, also all the pictures so far has been allegedly taken on April the 4th, 2011, and the accident happened on March the 11th, 2011. Okay, let's keep it rolling here, just to keep you on track. And then the next set, number 70, again, prevent water leakage from Unit 2 water intake channel. This is absurdness, by the way. Unit 2 went China syndrome immediately. But this is the story they released after, right? And the idea was to build a picture for media to come out and say, oh, this is where Fukushima 50 was in, and restored this and restored that, and had to go and do this and do that. And this is simply absurd to suggest. So they're claiming that by pouring sand in this block here, they stopped radiation from leaking into the ocean. Okay. Now, let me come back over for a second. This is a model of the radioactive fallout directly into the ocean from a German institute. After 6 years, the entire ocean was polluted from radioactive fallout. But this is a model of airborne radioactive fallout. So now this model stops after 20 days. After another 10 days of letting the model run, the rest of the planet disappears too, under one incredible continuous plume of radioactive fallout. This is an absurd story, and we only talk about documentation. So in North America, there was 220 million atoms per liter of rainfall sustained. It was an Ottawa study from Canada. There was many of these different isotope studies like that, right? But 220 million atoms per liter that's an extinction event for the species, that kind of numbers. Also the iodine, and you can imagine how much we're talking about, 220 million atoms per liter. That soaks up the thyroid glands of all the species and humans, and then that's converted into mutated hormones, radioactive hormones. That's distributed out throughout your entire body, and just the whole thing now they call it COVID. See, the cover story is coronavirus. Let's keep going here. And I've been looking for, that's the wrong spot. I've been looking for my microphone that plugs into my laptop so I can redo some of the presentations on coronavirus at a different site, because you're not allowed to have a conversation about it apparently on typical social media. So I've exhaustive searches on 2 days looking for a Blue Yeti microphone that plugs directly into my laptop, which is more convenient for me, because you're talking about 20,000 pieces of information I got to try to sort through and tell that story. So the buildings are destroyed, and they're claiming that they're stopping the radiation from getting in the ocean by dumping sand down here, which is absurdness, okay? And as you see, if you watch the other parts of this series or you know much about this story, you'll know it's insane. But that's the industry for you. You can't get near the reactors. The reactors detonated. These are lethal doses. Helicopters couldn't even go and dump water on the fuel pools. And you'll see a lot of these pictures on this last set will look kind of like this. Now remember, the reactors need 4,500 tons a minute each to keep cool. And so dumping sand down a hole is somehow, and we'll bring that back up for you, is somehow a measure to prevent contaminated water near Unit 2, which, and they're not, they're down on the other side of the pump house with those pictures, by the way, which is quite a ways away from the actual Unit 2s. And preparation for debris removal utilizing remote-controlled heavy machinery is number 71 when we get to it. And right now we're at 69. We're just going to go through these because we got around 600 pictures to finish out. And like you say, a lot of them are so blurry when they're shot at nighttime. That's the pictures that are really don't tell you much. That's the ones TEPCO released, in other words. And that's not an accident. Because a trained eye who understands the site can certainly extrapolate a lot of information from a very small amount of documentation, right? And they're very careful. And so those buildings over there, we've showed the pictures of this building, where you can see all the windows are gone all the way up. That's important stuff, right? That shows you the carnage at this site. And when they're showing you these little scraps, this is usually because the Geiger counters were screaming, and they were just trying to document. They got killed by doing it. Right? They were being tricked and deceived. And that's allegedly by Unit 2, is it? I think there's generators there. No, I'm not sure what. Oh, that's dry cast up high? I don't think they had dry cast. I thought the dry cast were over by Reactor 5 and 6. So that's probably not it. So, okay, oh, there she is. And, like, they're walking on steel plates. So always keep that in the back of your mind, these steel plates. And you can see you got short boots on. They never wasted no money on these people. They gave them thin gloves and a paper suit. And, of course, TEPCO says they burn 7,000 paper suits every day. And this is not like say somebody buried some waste out in the desert or something like that, and they're going to dig it up and blah 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 blah. Even then, you're supposed to build a fence around it, 900 feet circumference, and put up universal warning signs so people can stay away from it. Because that's how dangerous radiation actually is. And so these are not nuclear engineers and nuclear scientists or nuclear academics or anything like that, or nuclear companies. We know that because they're wearing paper suits, which is next to no protection, walking on steel plates. Now, it would have took a lot of effort. This would have been probably 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, this type of picture. They're claiming it's the 2nd day of April 2011. That's simply not true. That's 100% unequivocally not true. We're at 71 now. Okay, so 71 series, and we're going to flash through this soon. 71 is removal utilizing the remote-controlled heavy machinery. 72 will be measured to prevent contaminated water leakage near Unit 2 again, intake channel. These are absurd suggestions that they were able to do something like that. And so now we're looking at the 3rd day of April. Here we go. 3rd day of April. And I'm not sure what they're doing right there. So this is supposed to be remote control equipment. Again, you see that little rectangle with sand in it. This is obviously a hot piece of metal or maybe or something like that. And I'm interested to zoom in on most of the workers if it looks relatively... Now, he's carrying a Geiger counter, and he's wearing a disposable paper suit. Is there somebody else there? And this, when you see this kind of background, it usually means you're down by the ocean. And so you can see these big cement tsunami blockers. They have a certain shape to them. And then this type of railing is emblematic. And then levelness, it might not be, but it typically implies you're down by the ocean when you see stuff like that. That definitely implies... Now, so they're claiming that by filling this up, they block the radiation from getting in the ocean from Reactor 2. They also claim that they had 8,000 people working on the site. And I can assure you, now this is the pump exchange for Reactor 2. It needs 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks every minute to run normally. So the amount of water you're looking at is insignificant. And it really makes you wonder what the hell they can be. Now, that's some kind of a measuring stick, isn't that? It's just, I'm not sure if that's some kind of dosimeter or something. And if it is, that's literally the worst job you can ever have. So this is series 72. And series 72s. Measure to prevent contaminated water leakage near Unit 2 intake channel. And then the next one is going to be right down on the ocean. Conditions of the breakwater and embankment in the power station site. The next set is conditions at the seaside of Unit 4 and the seawater pipe duct. A measure to prevent contaminated water leakage near Unit 2 intake channel again, which is what we're looking at right now, right? So those gates, you see that quite a bit of those gates pictures. So TEPCO was very careful to not release pictures of the reactors, give you pictures of little nonsense all around the site. But it's still important because that's the official story. And that's actually from TEPCO's website. That's the official story. And so the more holes you poke in the official story, the more we have to worry, right? The more you see this, look over here, don't go be looking over there, the more concerned we should be for the species on the planet and for humanity's very short future. We're in real trouble, and we've done research expeditions all the way to Alaska on the ocean for 4 to 5 months a year. Yeah, that's a ruler. So they're showing how far the Earth dropped, I would imagine, right? Because you can see where the Earth rose, and I think it was 6 feet or something, right, that Japan dropped, or rose, depending on which side you're on. So that's a ruler showing where the Earth is broken apart, typically. So we're here to learn about the nuclear meltdown, and this is what TEPCO is feeding everybody as a distraction, instead of really good pictures of the reactors. And it was really difficult to assert which reactor was which reactor originally, because there was nobody on the planet who was saying, this is reactor 1, right? Here's a picture. Here's reactor 2, here's another picture. That was really unusual to find it. You really had to look, and you would have to go halfway through a presentation before they start to show it to you. Again, they're showing us pictures that really don't give us much insight, right? This is obviously down closer to the water. It's just you get familiar with the whole area eventually, right? And so again, we're seeing this is where they're stopping the water intake, or the water, they're claiming they're stopping water from a melted reactor on the other side of the pump house from getting to the ocean by doing this. This is what they're claiming. But you've seen the pictures of the reactors, I think, did I? Let me go back for 1 second. So that's reactor 4, what's left of it over there. So how are you going to stop anything from getting in the ocean from that thing? By blocking a little hole down. Because it detonated and the plume covers the whole planet, see? Right? This is a plutonium-239 dispersal from Japan's official numbers. Let me give you another model here that really drives that home. This is France's model, and that's the Pacific Ocean. This right here is the Atlantic Ocean. Up here is Europe. This model is based on 16 days of radioactive fallout. And it's only based on venting. It's not based on the actual nuclear meltdowns. And so it covers the whole planet in 16 days of radioactive fallout. That's France's model. You know, France. By the way, the EU has just come out and said they're going to delay, and we already know that because they were supposed to come out on January the 1st and say if nuclear was green or not, right? And which is a crime against humanity to consider nuclear green. Because you just seen the plumes, how it covers the entire planet. UN experts says radiation from Fukushima will have negative effects on negative health effects. There's reactor 3, for instance, that's reactor 4. There were 190-foot high buildings and 150 feet wide buildings. And as you can obviously, hopefully appreciate, that they're completely and utterly and irreparably destroyed. This is not, but the problem was they had 2 fuel pools at the top of the buildings, and each fuel pool would have had around 6 million pounds in it because you don't have a repository anywhere in the planet, let alone Japan. And so that's one pool there and another pool over there. This is the reactor core, goes up to the top of the buildings. Reactor 3 over there. So the people you see were sweeping, right? They were not very far from that reactor. Sweeping a lot. Well, you got a raging nuclear meltdown. They're still going on. And the fuel pools at the very top of the buildings. And then this is the stump of reactor 3 after they removed the debris, remote control cranes apparently. And so you can see this is not a 190-foot building. And the fuel pools would have been at the top of it. Obviously they're not there. So let's get back into the pictures. We do got a poll going. Might as well remind everybody. Should victims who worked at the Fukushima nuclear meltdowns for one single day, for 1 hour, for 1 minute, get a pension for life? And the right answer is yes, because as I'm showing you, obviously these are absurd numbers of radiation that we're talking about. Let's get back into the pictures. Let's keep it rolling here because... so we're down, obviously we're at number 73, and 73, let me bring that up very quick. 73 is conditions of the breakwater embankment and the power station site. Conditions of the breakwater and embankment. So we got at a nuclear meltdown, they're feeding us pictures of the breakwater site. So TEPCO is a very, very terrible steward of this site. They've been nationalized by the Japanese government immediately because they went bankrupt. And so that's reactor 5 and 6. Now that tank you're looking at right there, you can see the deformity, hopefully, of that tank, despite the fact that it's grainy. But there's cleaner pictures coming up, hopefully, of that. We have it for the 736 picture series. There's a link to that in my playlist, single video. And so you can see the utter destruction over there. So that's handy when we do, you can still extrapolate information. But that's not what they were trying to do, right? Now, reactor 6, let's go back to reactor 6 for a second. Anytime you're ready, Dana. Yeah, reactor 6. All the pictures that came out this year of that reactor, which is this one right here, were redacted. and that's reactor 5. And so they're a very long way from reactor 1 and 2 and 3. This picture, Buddy got a selfie, getting a selfie down by, or the next picture will be him getting a selfie. Come on. I just hate that feature, eh? What are you going to, I guess you need a feature if you're moving the camera. That's a really strange picture because you're at a multiple nuclear meltdown accident. And yeah, you're doing it to get context of size, no doubt. But you're only wearing a paper suit, not a Tyvek suit, but a paper suit. And you got your pants legs tucked in instead of down around it and taped. And it's the same thing with your gloves. Your gloves, you got your suit tucked in your gloves. When your suit should be going over your gloves. In fact, what it should be doing is you should have like a 5-inch PVC pipe cut off, and that goes inside the glove, right? And then the suit goes over that also, and then you tape that, so you got freedom. Not only that, but so that you have a solid containment there. But see, those suits are not; these are burnt at the end of the day in the incinerators, right? So these are paper suits. You can't protect somebody. So if you go look back at the radioactive fallout videos, what the government wanted to do, they wanted to build, you remember back in the 50s and 60s, these videos are online where they want you to build a bomb shelter. Watch those videos when you get a chance. And the walls got to be 4 feet thick of dirt because radiation will pulse through 4 feet thick dirt. Or it's got to be like 3 inches of steel because radiation will fallout will pulse through 3 inches of steel and really hurt you. So wearing a paper suit at a nuclear meltdown, that's just cruel, That's pretty cruel thing to do to somebody. Again, those stacks you see up there, you can't actually get close to the stacks. Just keep it rolling here. And so there's a lot of damage. Obviously, you can see the ground shifted is what they're showing there. Whoopee. I want to see the reactors and not from that distance. And there is pictures coming up, but they release so many garbage pictures, so for a lot of people, they won't. It's hard for them to extrapolate something from mostly junk, obviously. See, and I got no idea what that is. A tsunami would have thrown it there. That could be stuff thrown from the buildings. This is down by the pump houses, and these pieces are bolted down. Like normally you couldn't remove them by hitting them, running into them with an automobile. So you can imagine how much force we're talking about. You imagine how much force it takes to move one of those big cement blocks. Well, you had a huge river run through the site. Let me give you a quick understanding of that, hopefully. I got those pictures there, yeah. Let me bring that up very quick. So you had a tsunami. This is the site itself. Run through the site at, like the waves come in at around 400 to 500 miles per hour because you displaced the tectonic plates. And that's what created these incredible waves. So you can see how much power this thing has. And there's people out there saying only 2 or 3 inches washed through the site. It was actually 800 kilometers of the coastline looks like that. I always say it's 680 kilometers. I know that, right? But the actual official numbers was 800 kilometers. And everywhere you see red is people who died, and yellow are people that are missing. Right? So it gives you context of how bad it must have been. Right? And obviously, that's what we're talking about. So there's a lot of power in water in a very short, just a few moments. You can imagine sustained, like we've seen going on there, right? So when you see the headlines telling to make a geezer suicide squad, that's an incredible disparaging remark. Typical Mitchell will run of the homeless. All of Japan must face this at one of the Fukushima draft. 60 and older should be prepared to die at the nuclear meltdown. All of eastern Japan evacuated. The Fukushima plant was abandoned. They did abandon it, and they admit it because of the radioactive steam that was coming up through the grounds.
Another example, immediately after the first hydrogen explosion, TEPCO gave out an order a request to all of these labor dispatching companies, and they said, send us people who don't mind dying. At that time, it was really very much a panic situation, perhaps, but normally when you enter...
Okay, and just remember that in the United Kingdom, UK, when Windscale melted down, they went to the theaters and they stole people from the back rows of the theaters. I put together this little graphics to articulate that for you. We'll jump back into the pictures. I'll start that again. Hang on.
And they brought a bus and
we'll do that again.
The police from the factory had turned up looking for volunteers. And they brought a bus and they decided the best way to get the volunteers was to go to the cinema and volunteer the back 2 rows at the show to go into the factory to, as it turned out, to help push the fuel rods out of the reactor.
Pushing the fuel rods out of the reactor. Hang on, here we go. Come back to the pictures. Okay, here we go. Where are we to, dang it? Oh, yeah. I'm supposed to be in this shot is the problem. Here we go. Back to normal. We got 40 votes. Should victims who work at Fukushima nuclear meltdown for one single day get a pension for life? 95% of the people understood the significance of it and voted correctly. Let's run through these pictures here. So, like, when you see bags, you're looking at 2 years down the road. It's 2 years down the road before those bags had showed up. They're claiming, this is on the 4th of April, they're claiming that this is 24 days after the tsunami. This is not 24 days after the tsunami, by the way. See, James Lucid is in there talking about pictures of people in titanium suits at the site. Just give me a second. And remember, all nuclear power plants need external power to run the sites. And so when you had 800 kilometers, I always say 680 kilometers of coastline stripped, there was no way to get the external power supply in it. And so the people we're seeing, this, we have a lot of evidence suggesting it's the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society, the immigrants who don't speak the language, and there's one headline missing. Hang on, I'll get it right quick. Is there anything quick anymore in this world? There it is. 16,000 workers have quit. I just want to bring up that picture James Lucid is talking about really quick. Hang on. Because that's the way the world works, right? Pictures. I don't know if I can find it. I know I should be able to find it, but I'll bring it up here. That's not it. I can probably spot it quicker here. No. Click that right quick. Because you got a bigger screen than I do. Hang on. Give me one more kick at that, see if I can find the picture he's talking about. That's not it. No. Titanium vest. It would be something like that. That's not it. Give me 2 more tries. Where they're working on Reactor 3, right? That's not it. Well, we haven't got huge time constraints, I suppose, but we got too many pictures to shift through them all. There it is. They're wearing titanium vests. See the vest that they got on? There's a couple of these pictures. Oh well, that's not the one I wanted though. I don't know. Let's keep her rolling, I suppose, because we're... Oh, there it is. Is it? Nope. Bastards. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, here we go. We'll go back into the regular pictures. We'll go back into the regular pictures. No, because that's a great picture he's talking about. I'll have it next time, buddy. The problem is I got too many pictures and I can't remember specifically in the big roller, so let's go. Anyway, yeah, people wearing titanium vests out inside of Reactor 3 is frightening. Frightening pictures. Again, when you see this kind of carnage, though, that tells you how hopeless it is to try to restore something. You can imagine how many months it took to dismantle just that bit. And people in paper suits, these are spotters for the excavator. And if they don't drop dead, then the excavator keeps going forward. Like, they should be wearing backpacks, like divers' backpacks. They should be wearing rubber type suits that are completely contained. And you can imagine, right? And so they're hooking up some kind of slide where they're going to, what? Put dirt. And this is supposed to, it's just absurd. There's nothing you can do at a nuclear meltdown is what I'm trying to say. You can't build like a little slide and dump dirt and mitigate the detonations I showed you earlier. So this is 74. Let's bring up the information on that. Conditions at the seaside of Unit 4 in the seawater pipe duct. And then again, measured to prevent leakage near Unit 2 water reactor is right after that in 75. So 74 is just 1 megabyte, so it's just a couple of pictures. And so we're sending people in with a paper suit on is just... And this is the junkyard down by the pump house where everything is just destroyed. You're talking just an absurd amount of equipment that is missing, and then what's left there is just a jumble of metal. And so that's a pretty crazy job where you're walking around, you're the external eyes for the excavator, and you got yourself a paper suit. At least you got his suit over his booties. Everything should be taped. It's a complete disregard for life to send people in like that. They would have died that day or that week, those people. And that's what they call them sponges, because they suck up the radiation in just minutes a lot of the times, right? But they're not aware of that. They won't know that till the next day or the next week, and then all of a sudden their organs have all failed because they were melting. And so showing you stuff like this at a nuclear meltdown is pretty pointless. And that's what they're doing with these pictures. It's a distraction, right? They released all the pictures that were useless, basically. Anything that wasn't perfectly clean or clear was just put into this pile to release to the population to drive them insane. So there's 2 barges. These are generator barges for lights, basically. And they claim water, but you need 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks every minute. And so these particular barges are for bringing fuel for the fire trucks and stuff like that and vehicles on the site. And they're also generators, massive generators, and they stay on the barge. And that's another barge coming in. Now, normally there is a towboat that is shoving them all over the place. And this is, once again, down on the seaside of the pump houses. And the pump houses are between the ocean and the reactors. And in you can't fix the destroyed reactors. They're already destroyed. But what you can do is come up with a cover story. And this is what you're seeing. So it's, because their official narrative is right here in the labels. And that's 75. We're still at 74. And you can see equipment there. You can imagine how radioactive that stuff is. It's a hellish sight. Again, the grates. This is 75, which is the grates. They're talking about the pump. 75 measures to prevent contaminated water leakage near yump number 2 water intake channel. Well, the intake channel is bringing water in, and it's pumped, sucked up by the pump house, which is above it, and then that pushes it over to the reactors. So the leak can't be down there, see? And if they're talking about preventing a leak where they're saying they're actually pumping from the pump houses, like if you remember the original story, the pump houses were full of thousands of tons of radioactive water. And the top of the buildings of the pump houses were penetrated by assemblies that were ejected from some of the reactor buildings. And they're like almost 2,000 pounds each. And they had crashed through the roof of the pump houses. So fuel rods full of pellets went directly into the pump houses. And even today they can't get into those pump houses. And so then showing you a little bit of water pumping, like they're claiming that's a leak, right? Basically. Yeah, it is a leak. It's a lethal leak. You can't stand up there and take that picture, by the way. Kind of a leak. You got sick for doing that. And we got no idea what that is. That's typical brain. When you think about how many tens of thousands of miles of cables that a nuclear power plant uses, and you look at the enormity of the destruction we're talking about, there's zero way to restore any kind of functional power system, and the buildings are completely destroyed. You can't power these buildings that are destroyed. That's 63. Let me give you one. I got it right here, actually, the other side. So here's what it looked like originally. This is what it looked like the first couple of years. By 2013, that building over there, they had tore the top off it because it didn't matter anymore. And then they had come out with a cover story worldwide. Public relations story came out and they claimed they're on the top of Reactor 4 when it actually looked like the building to your left.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011, leading to the country's worst nuclear disaster.
And so all the media was doing this worldwide. And so the cover story was incredible that they'd done something like that, because that's simply not true. See, temporary workers fight to repair the crippled Japanese power plant. Homeless are taken there. The mentally handicapped are working at Fukushima plant, which makes sense when you see the pictures I'm showing you here tonight. That 100% unequivocally, that does make some sense, right? And so they put a lot of emphasis so far in this bunch of sets on stopping a leak from Reactor 2. This, down on the other side of the pump house. Because, you can't get to the reactor, so you got to do, how do you tell a lie? And so the whole infrastructure got washed away. And again, look at this. The vehicles are parked on top of 4 by 16 foot steel plates. It's a very telling thing when you see that, because of radiation. You got a couple of people over there, and at no point can you conceive there's more than 30 or 40 people at this massive site. That's the size of a city, really. So they're taking plates off that truck with that crane, most likely, is what's going on there. And you can see he stood on a plate, and then they're laying these plates on the ground. And that's a staging area because there's so much radiation. Originally, they sent in remote control, allegedly, bulldozers, and buried the radiation. And they brought in, or they moved sand from one area to another area to level it off. And then they brought in the plates. Eventually, they would have paved over those plates. They would have poured cement over it first, and then they would have paved over that. Then they would have put down more steel plates, and then they would have paved over that and more cement, or vice versa. Because paper suits they're using the steel plates, and not paper suits, to protect themselves on the ground, right? Because steel plates will do some of the work, but a paper suit does none of the work. It's actually murder to send people into a nuclear meltdown with paper suits. And you can't even get close to the bottom of those stacks, those tall chimneys they use for gassing off the radioactive emissions from the spent fuel pools and from the incinerator, which is right by Reactor 4. And this picture is 77, allegedly right by Reactor 4. That looks like Reactor 4 to me. Let's find out. 77. Preparations for water discharge into the Reactor 4 building. Now, if the reactors don't, the fuel pools will boil off, and they did, and they caught fire, and they blew up, caught fire, and detonated, and everything else. Right, and so that's Reactor 4. You can see the red cement truck in the very corner over there. So this is the front shot. This is the pump house right here. And you see that hole in the roof there? That's one of the holes I'm kind of talking about, where fuel actually went down into the hole from the mixed oxide fuel facility, which was reactor number 3 right here. And up there in the corner, behind Reactor 4, up in the very corner, is the common spent fuel pool. That's super important because the tsunami went right through it. And so the only water they got is salt water. They're spraying the water in there to try to convince you that the fuel pools at the top of the buildings are intact. And so they're going to come out later and tell you it looks like that inside of the building. So they're very cagey, and I have to keep reminding everybody because it's hard. I appreciate how hard it is to keep on track. And so they were looking for nuclear scientists able to carry out a conversation. Or homeless. Most likely homeless, right? So we're at the set 75. Let's keep it rolling. We're going to have to start boogieing, though, because we got a long way to go at this rate. But it's hard to zip through this. And so everybody in their paper suits with their hands behind their back in suits that got no dirt, no tears on them. And they're going to set up this truck and everybody's hunky-dory. That's one of the strangest pictures I've ever seen. It's like that's Medusa right up here, number 4. Look at the integrity of the building. Remember the pylons or the beams on the building. You can actually turn a great big SUV around on them. And now a cement truck is not meant to pump water. I think Swanee D mentioned that too there in the comment sections a while back about that. Which, because he used to work in construction a long time ago. And so they're trying to convince you that number 4 is intact, but we have the documentation shown it boiled off the water, which is what it'll do, right? If you lose power, external power, that pool is going to boil. And which, once it starts boiling, because the fuel is hot that's in the pool, it boils it off 120,000 liters a day normally, right? And so once you boil it down to a certain stage where it's exposed, some of the rods are exposed, the zirconium claddings will catch fire immediately, and they'll burn at incredible temperatures. and will ignite a uranium. This will boil off the pool in a flash boil. And now you have all zirconium detonating at the one time, basically catching fire, and it goes China syndrome. So when the building blew up because there was the reactor itself had lost. Now the reactor, they say in reactor 4 was for maintenance, but what they do is you take about 1/3, 1/2 of the fuel out of the reactor core and put it in the pool, but the rest of it actually stays in the reactor core. They never, unless it's extreme, where they're going to do like a 2-year refit or something like that, half the fuel stays in the reactor. It has to have water though, same as the pool. Now there was talk that the earthquake had split the pools and they lost their inventories. And so they're never going back, these people. And he's got a big Geiger counter around his neck. And he's wearing a paper suit with paper suit loosely on the bottom of his boots. He's the canary in the coal in the mine. They do this at construction sites where guys will get jobs, and their job is to go down into any holes in the ground each day and after each break and check for noxic gases. And these people are like, I got the best job in the world. I just walk around with a little chummy and nobody says nothing to me, right? No, you're the first guy to go into the danger zone. You're going to be the first guy who dies, and they usually are, right? Because the equipment doesn't matter if the equipment works. If they tip over, that's what matters, right? So this can't replace 4,500 gallons per minute, for starters. And the fuel pool we know had detonated and released it. And I'm not going to try to go through all that documentation, but you will find it on my site. Down by the water, we're at 78 and 78. Images upper part of Unit 4 reactor building taken by a camera. Now this set, they were trying, you can see the pictures that they did release, they were trying to imply that there was a fuel pool. Now they're spraying water from, that's not the top of it, but they're spraying water, and that's one of the pictures. Let me go back to that one. I scrutinize these pictures a lot, and there's no, if you take a picture into a shadowed area, that's what it should look like, see? They want you to believe there's a fuel pool in there. And it's not. It boiled off. Now the pictures are claiming the 4th of April, or the 5th of April, which is 25 days, or 24 days, it's 31 days in March, right? It's 25 days after. I find no evidence of a fuel pool. I have a lot of evidence that it burnt off. And so it looks like there could be emissions coming up right here, or it could be just blurry pictures. Now that's one of the trolleys that would lift the assemblies from the fuel pool or the reactors. I'm not sure, there's 2 of them, right? 2 fuel pools. And some of these pictures should show them pouring water in here. So they maintain that the fuel pool was intact, and that's what they're trying to imply by releasing these particular pictures. And remember, they've been caught faking pictures of Reactor 4 too, redacting and pixelating pictures of the exterior of it. And once again, there's no evidence suggesting that there's a fuel there or a pool there. It's a shadow area, and it wouldn't be a shadow area. You would see reflections because you're taking it from multiple angles, all these different angles with a drone. At some point, you would expect to see a reflection in there. You would expect light to penetrate it, right? And I've scrutinized this pretty heavily, but there's nothing there that suggests, and you see water coming up in a little bit. And it looks like vapor sometimes, but I don't think it is, even though it could be. Again, you're not seeing, now anybody who looks at water knows what the reflection would look like. And the destruction here is absurd destructions. That's absurdness destruction right there. And yeah, that was a massive detonation, right? Reactor 4. Let me give you a better example of it. So Reactor 4 is that building up there. You can see the detonation we're actually talking about. It's an incredible detonation, right? That's really is a catastrophic detonation. Okay, let me see. Let's keep her going, I guess. Okay, let's roll. And a lot of these pictures are pointless, but that's water running down is what that is. It's hard to appreciate it maybe from your end, but you can kind of see it moving down. There you go. They're spraying water down. And there it is right there, right here. Well, we got better pictures of that coming up here in a minute. Well, remember we got a vote or we got, hi everybody. Should victims who worked at Fukushima nuclear meltdowns for one single day get a pension for life? We got 46 votes. And an astounding 96% of the people think that the victims that worked there should get a pension for working there for one single day, which is correct, right? That's the right answer. So that is water running down. We'll get to that coming up. You can start to see it dripping. No, that's chains. Again, you don't see, because water, when you're taking all these pictures from all these different angles, you expect to see a couple of pictures. Now you can see water running off it there. Water running off it there. But you know what water looks like when it hits something? So if it's hitting other water, it would stand out. If there was actually water there, it would stand out. And there's water pouring in, but it's hitting on steel, right? It's on the base of the crane system by the looks of it. Again, these dark areas, these are very, very selective pictures that they released. It was on purpose they released those particular pictures. But I can assure you we've been at this for a very long time and that those fuel pools do not exist. So we're at 79, and 79 is supposed to be here. Measure to prevent contaminated water leaking Unit 2 intake channel. They're putting in some kind of a injection down there allegedly. That's the world's worst job over there, man. That person doesn't need a pension because he died that day. So they're on the water side of the pump house. And the pump house is that long straight building behind them. And that's Reactor 1, the roof of Reactor 1 there. That's the roof of Reactor 2 right there. And so they're trying to stop a leak down here, which is, this is a public relation. All these pictures are meant to deceive you, manipulate you. So they're allegedly putting grout down in the hole. That truck there, there we get it back. That truck is kind of like a cement truck, right? You see what I mean there? That's a truck. You can see the two wheels there. And that's typical what you would expect out of a cement truck, that configuration. And they're pouring, they certainly are pouring grout down in the hole. But as I showed you, the buildings are incredibly destroyed. And pretending, this is simply pretending. They got a big drill there and they're drilling down into the ground. This is absurdness to suggest that they're blocking. Again, the reactor needs 4,500 tons of water going in every minute. And this is on the other side of the screens where the water now gets sucked up by the pump house and pumped up higher to the reactor buildings themselves at an incredible rate. And this is still 79. You're wearing paper suits and multiple nuclear meltdowns on the other side of the pump house. These are not academics or scientists or corporations, because we know that because they're wearing paper suits. And that's your truck pumping grout. And so they show you all these pictures of something irrelevant, completely irrelevant. And they're trying to pretend that they're stopping the ocean from being contaminated. And the problem with the story is that we have documentation of the radioactive follow plumes. It covers the planet in about 16 days. This one is 19 days, 466 hours after is around 19 days, right? Some people not being given food. That's the people in the paper suits you're seeing. Workers are really tempered and they use violence, not to cause any trouble, like fight while at Reactor 4. Like fight. These are horror stories. So should those people be getting a pension that were there? TEPCO raises safe radiation limits 500 times from 180 counts per minute to 100,000 counts per minute. They should definitely be getting a pension, right? I wanted to escape the nuclear plant but feared they might hurt me. Does that sound like nuclear scientists? Imagine if nuclear scientists got on TV and said, I wanted to escape nuclear plant but I feared they were going to hurt me. Or imagine if a nuclear scientist gets on CNN and goes, some of the people there can't even read. They start getting real people in there to do the job, right? Or imagine if the nuclear scientist says, we're treated like disposable people. We're forced to go to the plant. Mentally disabled are working at Fukushima, not nuclear scientists. And that's why you see people stood up everywhere in paper suits. Because if I was there and I didn't know much about it, well, let's say I knew a bit about nuclear, right? And they want me to wear a paper suit. I'd be gone right away. I'd leave right away. And it would be no good paper suit. Like, there's always people stood around doing nothing. Always, all the pictures. And, like, you can't go and buy a $10 paper suit next time you're going past one of these home hardware type shops. Go buy a paper suit and go out and clean up the garage for 5 minutes to see how many rips and tears and dirt your paper suit got. You see how useless and pointless it is the minute you put it on. It's absurd that, and you got all these people stood around, not all kinds of people, just a handful of people, and keep showing you pictures of this grate. Meanwhile, on the other side of the building, you got multiple nuclear reactors melting down, and they're showing you this. And they're constantly, and I understand why they're on the back of the pump house, because you're on the sea side of the pump house. You can see the reactors on the other side, the tip of the roof up there. That's Reactor 2 roof, and that's Reactor 1 roof. I wouldn't be there either. That's like crazy to be right there. But this has to be probably 2 years later by the looks of things. Not April the 5th, and this is 79, which is April the 5th, right, of 2011. This is 25 days... 25 days later. So again, you're down by the seaside. And I apologize for what TEPCO has done to us, wasting our times with these types of pictures. But again, you can extrapolate that they're not trying to be honest, and they're certainly trying to be deceptive. And when you provide this kind of documentation about you can see everybody there's bored out of their mind, don't understand what they're doing. Yeah, just drill a hole and put the grout down there, get lots of pictures. Don't worry about it. The public relation firm needs the pictures. Just get your picture taken. And it's rare to see that many people together. That's really, but they're in paper suits. And of course, TEPCO says he burns 7,000 paper suits a day. I remember covering those headlines and I was like, these are maniacs. First off, you're going to liberate the radiation back into the environment by burning it, because you can't incinerate radiation. It won't destroy it. You're just going to release it back into the environment. And that's 79. Who knows what it is? They're not talking. I got no idea what it is. It can't be good, obviously. Oh, they got water. And so they're trying to stop that water, apparently. Well, if you know anything about water, if water's coming down a hill and you block it in one place, the water just got to find a route somewhere else and come out the other side, right? Let's get through all of this anyway. Obviously, this is garbage. We want to get the good stuff because it's no sense wasting our time on. And again, these weird, incredibly weird pictures of hoses with pressure lines on it. And the grout truck is right behind them also at the same time. These are nighttime shots. And because it was March, then there was a lot more daylight each day than there is now. And a lot of the pictures, of course, are going to be very... At nighttime, they're not going to be very good pictures, right? You have multiple nuclear reactors melting down. And nobody knows what they're up to. I got no idea. It's 79. Let's keep her going. It's got something to do with this grate, apparently. Let's get out of this section. And that's a trench. Now, this is the pump house, the top of the... Not the pump house, but the pump. Because down by the ocean, they have the pumps are installed to pump it up to the pump house, to suck it up from the ocean. Pump, because you're talking about 1 million gallons per minute, 4,500 pickup trucks a minute for each of the reactor buildings. And that's the first stage of it down there. We'll get past this and see what else comes up here. Because this is not... Right, so TEPCO released a lot of pictures that are pointless, that are impossible to extrapolate. Outside, it's a distraction for you and me. That's why they released this particular set of pictures. The first 5 episodes were... there was a lot of good information there, I suppose. I remember the beginning of this one tonight where they had people, homeless people obviously, sweeping with old brooms, handmade brooms, sweeping radiation in the parking lot, face level with Medusa, which is Reactor 3. It's just a frightening picture. It really is. So TEPCO, why'd you just release 7 pictures like that for TEPCO? And then this picture, which kind of gives you something to look at, but not, it's so blurry, it's hard to utilize it, right? Same as this picture. And that's what I'm saying. TEPCO kept the good pictures, released the shit pictures, and just to torture the daylights out of people that were trying to understand it, right? So that's a drill. Drilling down into a random spot into the earth by the looks of it, in order to shoot stupid pictures. And then take as many of these pictures, the blurry ones will release to the public, the good ones, nobody will ever see them again. And this is a pumping station down by the water itself. These are all the pumps. They were all destroyed immediately. And they need their own external power plant to run those pumps, right? Their own coal plant, oil plant, gas plants. They need 2 of them dedicated to these nuclear power sites to build them, to operate them, and then for 60 to 100 years to allegedly decommission them. And there's around, that's Reactor 2. That's Reactor 2. So this is way after what they're claiming these pictures were taken. Go and pick up that electrical line there. We're up at 82. Let's have a quick boot, keep on track. 81. We just looked at debris removal utilizing remote controlled heavy machinery. Cable running across the road after being cut. And then the next one is spraying anti-scattering agents. That's a terrifying job. That's coming up right away. So that's the cable across the road. Wow, 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 TEPCO. And so they put plates on it to protect the cable after it's destroyed. So you're talking maybe 2 years down the road, these pictures. Now, when you see this kind of site, that's what do they call it? Let's use their terminology, I guess. Anti-scattering agents. They call them, they're usually described as a reagent. Something that bonds with everything and is designed to stop the atoms that are being split from escaping and causing high numbers for the employees, because you want to get a day or 2 days out of the homeless before they have to, like if the homeless say they got a headache or a nosebleed, they get rid of them right away. Come pick up your check next week and they're dead before next week. So there's a terrifying job. You're going in the middle of the regions and you're going to point out a spot that's really hot on the Geiger counter. It's just a little closer. You can pick up your check next week. Yeah. You're wearing a paper suit and it's not even taped onto your boots to stop the radiation from getting up in there. And of course, if you know anything about a paper suit, they're not windproofed, right? And everything's backwards. It's just that's a terrifying, that's a murderous job. That's the job we should definitely give nuclear scientists right there. Look. Can you crouch down a little closer? Yeah. And then the guy who's taking the pictures, the whole story is insane, man. They spraying the region there, which means you don't go there. That's radioactive zone. That was identified with Geiger counters as this danger area, and they sprayed it. But then somebody's like, yeah, you go over and stand up over there and take your picture. That's murder, man. I can't make it what the significance of that could be. Outside of, it's a highly radioactive environment with no human. Yeah, pick it up. My God, man. Holy. If you don't think the nuclear industry is cruel, then you got to come watch some of this stuff. Turn it over. This is not millisieverts or microsieverts. This is sieverts. So that's cruel to kill somebody doing that. So you can get a picture. That's absurdness, boy. You're like, how do we ever get to this spot, I wonder? You're at multiple nuclear meltdowns, like this. You're on the other side where I'm to, you're this way, right towards the ocean. And you got people in there picking up little tiny pieces. Which is not, you can't describe that as something, right? That's not like the back of a chair or a piece of the counter or top part of a door. It's radioactive hot is what it is. That whole area, because you wouldn't use that much reagent in that area. Yeah, it's just a frightening, terrifying picture. Let me get it out of the way just in case somebody wants a screen capture of hell. There it is right there. And there's many places like it. Look at this. Wow. That's that. Like if you ever get a job at a nuclear meltdown, somebody asks you to go pick something up so they can get a picture, run. Like look at all these spots covered in regions. You go over, squat down right there and point where the Geiger counter was screaming. That's good. Stay just like that. Click. That's madness. There's madness, and then there's what we're looking at right there. Workers are tricked to being on the front line of Fukushima. They can't escape, and they kept him in a shed. That would be that guy right there, for sure. Yep, you're going back to your shed. Good job today. Let me know when you got a nosebleed, because we're going to fire you, and you can pick up your check in 2 weeks. Now, they're supposed to get $1,000 a day, $2,000. Some people were offered $3,000 to go there for 2 hours. I bet you they took the money too, right? You got homeless people who will give you $3,000 if you go over there and let me take your picture. No, we'll give it to you right now. Really? Okay, I'll do it. It's a cruel and despicable, coward industry. It's revolting, really. That was our one opportunity to get rid of all kinds of nuclear scientists, and we blew it. It's a terrible opportunity, miss an opportunity like that. So we got a pump truck. That's most likely a fuel truck pumping fuel up from the barges to fill up the gen sets or something that are up here. I'm assuming, I don't know. They got hoses ran up here. So it's hard to say. Again, all these blurry pictures, I apologize, but I didn't take them. If I took them, they definitely would have been a lot blurrier than that. So I would have been crapping myself down here. So the reactor's way down there, and he's going the right way. Where you going? I don't know, but it's not going back there, baby. Just administration. Yeah, that's an appropriate picture. It'd be up way far away from the reactors. Hey, TEPCO, can you, like, Japan should pass a rule that TEPCO is never allowed to own a camera again. So vehicles got washed all the way up the hill. Look at that. Wow. That's way up the hill, man, that spot. There's Medusa. Wow. Now that picture would have been taken shortly after. These things are still melting down, still hemorrhaging radiation, by the way. And in March it was pretty cold there. They were having snow while people were stuck on top of buildings during this tsunami. When it was running back out into the ocean, there's a lot of footage showing that it was snowing, right? And so that's the perfect condition to have steam visible, right? You got hot air coming up and meeting the cold air, and then so you can visually see the steam. In the summertime, you won't be able to see it. It's only in the fall, winter, and early spring that you're going to see the steam per se. Not always true, but who knows? Because they don't tell you. It's 85, 83, 84 was inside the power station site of the area near the pure water tank. And they lost all functions of that. So this is up by the pure water tank. So that was damaged heavily up there. Wow. Don't ask me because I don't know. Well, like they're not supposed to use salt water on these reactors because of the sulfur, the way it reacts in high temperatures. Obviously, the tsunami was way up here. And then you can even see the windows blown out up there. It's 85, it's still 85, so we don't know exactly where this is to. But this looks like it's up around administration, which is up above the reactors. So that could have been caused by the detonation, right? If it's up really high, it's most likely the detonation. And you got a hose ran into here for some reason. Again, they lost the inventories of the reactors right away. A lot of this is just show and tell. And they don't have actual nuclear academics or engineers here. It's just victims of society. Is that 89? 85, 85. Which is conditions the area near the pure water tank. Again, we see the outflow near reactor 2. And then after that is conditions around reactor 3 and 4, spraying more in regions. Preparation for the silk fence installation at 89. That's a fable and a half. Because we actually got the documentation on that. So this is the fresh water. We'll get past that. And when we get to the reactors, we're now into 86 at that stage. Again, back to this hole in the ground. Look at that. So obviously TEPCO had only released pictures that are for the official cover story that they had restored this or were restoring that. But when you look at the actual physical buildings, you know bloody well you can't restore power or electricity and infrastructure. In fact, they couldn't get back into the control rooms for 7 years. But allegedly they're in the reactor after 3 years. And because they're so blurry, I have to look down here because I have a laptop external up here plugged into the system. Let me go back to that picture. So that transport truck, everything there is covered in material. So that was always there. And that looks like a special truck, actually. Yes, and so that cab, or that building right there, this is tsunami debris, obviously, we're looking at. Or not. No, maybe not. Because the reactor is right there in the background. That's reactor 4 in the background. So this is up high. Because there's the base of the stack. Now that stack up here is around 25 sieverts. That's 5 times the lethal dose right around that height right there. Today. And so this debris you're looking at would have been from the detonation. So whoever took these pictures would have died that day or that week. That's reactor 3, rather, right there. And those pillars, you can actually turn an SUV around on those pillars. That's how thick they are. So this is a pump truck. But what are you going to be pumping? So you're bringing water up from the ocean and then pumping it from there. Because that's on the same street, I think, as the reactors, which is 87. You got your paper suit on? Let's go. Let's roll, baby. It's absurd to see people in paper suits at a nuclear meltdown. Now look how extravagantly they're swinging their arms and their legs and everything. You know they would have died that day or that week, those people. That's part of the reactor building where it fell. So they're up by 87. They're up by reactor 3 and 4. I don't know. So is this an air volume? Yeah, this is an air volume. That's an air volume. Meters per second. That's a Geiger counter. And you can't really tell what it's showing us. Geiger's counter they're using there would be sieverts, not millisieverts or microsieverts. It's 1,000 microsieverts to get a millisievert and 1,000 millisieverts to get a sievert. Let's see if we can get a number. I can't, because TEPCO hates us. Who knows, you might get a picture. And you see the reagent sprayed everywhere there? It's literally the worst case scenario is to go kneel down right there for a few seconds. And so for sure, whoever this person is with pink tape on would have died that day. No, we can't figure out what they're saying. They're giving us enough tries. I think we'd get it at some point. No. Yeah, one thing you don't do if you ever get a job at a nuclear meltdown, if they tell you to go stand up where all the green anti-scattering agents are sprayed, say I politely decline. And that's nanometer for measuring the wind speeds. Because that's important to know at a nuclear meltdown, trust me. And that's a Geiger counter. So that's probably, I don't know, we don't know. I shouldn't say anything because we don't know for sure. I would just love to see that say sieverts, because that has to be sieverts. And there is evidence to show they gave these victims broke basically fake Geiger counters, right, to get them go out and get pictures of fake numbers to use as a propaganda tool. We're not able to get an actual number out of them pictures because TEPCO why release all those pictures? And that's the wind speed of there. Again, look at the bags they got put there. See the black plastic bags? You're looking at least 2 years later before they start doing that. So these pictures are not, and this is 89. We're almost there, eh? Wow. 89. We want 89 was so 89 88, remember the anti-scattering agent? Man. 89 is preparation for a silk fence installation, which they admit they never done, right? Because it was going to cost $1 billion, and TEPCO wanted sushi and sake, and they weren't going to spend it. 89. So they're putting handles down on the wharf. Way to go, guys. You do realize you got a nuclear meltdown a few hundred feet away from you, don't you? Now they got 4 tie-downs, handles on the wharf. Just who knows. That's a pretty mall you got there, mister. A lot of these people would have died shortly after this. Remember the headline earlier? 16,000 people ran away? Yeah, TEPCO wasn't trying to be helpful when he released these pictures. TEPCO to useless. That's the pumping station on the shoreline. It pumps it up to the pump house, which is the building behind, the long skinny building behind it. And that building pumps it onto the reactors. Those stacks are lethal doses down by the base of them. There we see him again putting these handles. Job well done, buddy. You know how time consuming it is to do stuff like that, by the way? Five, 6, So these tunnels, there's tunnels there right now where the radiation was flooded into the tunnels, water, and they put zeolite, tons and tons and tons of bags of zeolites down there, and the surface of it is many sieverts, and they were trying to figure out how they're going to get it out of the hole. And so if you get a job down there, they want you to go down the tunnels, tell them to smurf off. You're not doing it. So this is debris. Again, what were they? These pictures are supposed to be 90. Conditions of the outdoor trench connected with the central radioactive waste treatment facility, which was on the other side of Reactor 4. Radioactive treatment facility. And then there was an incinerator right there alongside of that. Which kind of implies the barrels are radiation, right? So this was pounded by the tsunami, obviously. Once you have a tsunami run through your building, nothing works after. Did you know that? And nuclear power plants are much more susceptible to that stuff. So, I know some of the pictures in the other parts of this series, some of those shows did give us some pretty good information, right? But you always got to dig up the supporting documentation. And that's a terrible job to be sent in one of these tunnels, right? Because of how vapors work. Because how vapors work. He's wearing a paper suit, so he's not an engineer or a nuclear scientist or a nuclear academic or a nuclear company or a nuclear students or military or anything else. They're wearing paper suits. And 5 could be the trenches for Reactor 5, I don't know. That's definitely not a job you want to be taking, by the way. If you go to a nuclear meltdown, they're trying to give you a paper suit, it's time to run. Again, that's 91, we're at 91 series. We're almost through it, eh? Conditions of the deep well. And we'll just blast ahead to 94, I suppose. unless we see something interesting. Interesting to me is whenever I see people in their paper suits, like both of them with their arms out, go over there and stand up, point. I don't know, TEPCO said get pictures of people pointing. And that's the pump house behind them. And on the other side of that, you can see the top of Reactor 2 and top of Reactor 1 right there. And so this is out on the seaside of the pump houses. Everything was torn. Everything was just torn off back into the tunnels. We can't extrapolate anything into pictures like this. This is meant to drive you insane, so I apologize. But the pictures don't exist anywhere else. Nobody else has ever sat here methodically tried to go through the pictures. And somebody should, right? It should be a nuclear academic or a nuclear scientist or a nuclear engineer. Right? Should have done this a long time ago for everybody. Because the picture's been available for 10 years. Because TEPCO hates your guts. So now they're pouring cement or sludge in there. That's kind of what that looks like. I don't know if it is true or not. Because that looks like it's fresh and it's uniform. It's not full of debris or something. So if there's high radiation in there and you're pouring grout in there, those people that was in there getting the pictures taken and doing this would have died that day. This is supposed to be one of the trucks, I believe, that, yeah, you see people sat down inside of it. They got TVs. You can kind of see the TVs there. And they're controlling equipment from inside the truck. Yeah, there it is there. That's a shit job to have. So different views from the equipment on the camera. And what are you going to accomplish doing this? This is madness. You're in a paper suit with the door wide open, no filtration systems. Not that it's going to matter when a nuclear meltdown anyway. Oh yeah, you can see them loading debris or moving debris. And there's not another truck. Oh, that's it right there. So what the hell is that? That is a dump truck on the back of that, I do believe. And then they're up really high, right? And so look at everybody in their paper suits. All of these people should get a pension for the rest of their lives. So they kept them in a shed. Workers are tricked to being on the front line. Those people you've seen are tricked to be in there, right? Underage people were employed at it. Workers says we felt like kamikaze pilots, acute radiation sickness. Decontamination workers were threatened. We were punished if we tried to resist. Go over there and point at the ground so we can get your picture. Seniors sought for frontline radiation cleanup in Japan. The seniors are sought for frontline radiation cleanup. Get this going again. TEPCO unsure how to access areas radiation levels around it are 10 sieverts per hour. Fatal radiation levels found at Fukushima exceed 10 sieverts per hour. And the devices only measure up to 10 sieverts, by the way. Unit 1 and 2 exhaust stack high radiation dose rates in the area had measured over 10 sieverts an hour. TEPCO sent us people who don't mind dying. Water above 1 sievert per hour, so they're talking about per liter, so a couple of gallons is a lethal dose. Highest yet 512 sieverts an hour by Reactor 1. Radiation levels of several dozens of sieverts near Reactor 2. The number 1 reactor dry well meter hit 266 sieverts per hour. These are doses no matter anywhere within 1,000 feet. There's lethal doses at these numbers. This is a lethal dose from a kilometer away right there, from gamma shines, X-rays, neutron bursts. So when you see people at these sites, they should be getting a pension for the rest of their life, shouldn't they? Which reminds me, don't we got a poll? 54 votes, 94% say victims who worked at Fukushima nuclear meltdown for one single day should get a pension for life. And that's the correct number to give, by the way. Right? They really should get a pension for life. Let's keep it rolling here. So they're picking up that little tiny piece of metal because it's a lethal dose. And these are the spotters to make sure it goes in the bin in their paper suits. It's just terrifying, eh? There's nothing you can do because the buildings are already melted down, lost their inventories. This is all show and tell, all of these pictures. Sending people into harm's way like that, you can't accomplish nothing by doing this. You can't restore power. And look at that tsunami debris that flooded in here, right? Wow. And then these places are flooded, even today, right? A lot of these places. A lot of this radioactive water was pumped out directly onto the melting reactors, by the way, that's absolutely demonic thing to do. It's equivalent to, spraying Easy Off in your oven and then sticking your head in there and sealing it off. You know what's going to happen next. You're going to get sick and die, right? And you can see the tsunami debris washed up through all the system. That's the creepiest picture imaginable. Look at this, somebody walking ahead. Is it safe? Oh, well, you got your paper suit on. Yeah, that's right. Good stuff. I'll do it. I'll give you an extra $50. I'll do it. Murderers, eh? That's basically the only conclusion you're going to come to. And again, sadly, nobody's ever put these pictures online before. I got the links to TEPCO's website. You can download them yourself, is included below. But anybody that knows enough about this subject and this topic and this site in particular will tell you the same story as I'm telling you tonight. The whole story is absurd. Yeah, no, you got a paper suit, you'll be okay. Yeah, but it's multiple nuclear meltdowns. Yeah, but we're TEPCO, we're from the IAEA. We're not going in there, but you are. Your paper suit's okay. And it's simply not true. What's he got on his boots? He got bags on his feet to protect him at a nuclear meltdown. My God, boy. I should put everything in TEPCO in that room and lock it. Oh, tsunami, Bo, look at that. The power of a tsunami is just absurd. Comes in at 400 or 500 miles per hour. There's another one comes in on top of that. Then another one, because it go inland, and another one will come racing in on top of that. It's all over before you know it, right? Well, that's the stacks up there. I don't know if I'm higher or lower in this shot here. Oh, we're almost finished. We're at 98. There's only 99 to go. 98 is just the last two. Blocking the trench vertical shaft in the seaside of Unit 2. Yeah, so those shots are down by the ocean. Next one is debris removal utilizing remote controlled heavy machinery. That'll be the last one. And just down by the seaside, obviously, right? That's the pump, so you're really close to the water right there. And look at them all standing on this piece of wood. And Buddy's drilling it. Poor bastards, eh? They're going to fix that to the shaft. I guess it's emitting a lot of radiation, and they want to block it. I don't know. Typical, yeah, because that's what they're doing. They're not doing that because they're bored. And they're sealing it too. Look at that. Wow. So that's huge radiation, and those people would have died that day. Or the next day, say. Yeah, that's craziness. And you see these little strips of debris? That's from the reactor buildings when they exploded. It's the covering of the buildings. This is the very last set of pictures. Probably some good ones here. And there's supposed to be remote control vehicles, right, in this set. So they're up high, right here. They're above the reactors. Now they're on the same road as the reactor, but of course blurry as hell. And these are supposed to be remote control vehicles, what they're saying. But they're so blurry, you can't actually zoom in on the vehicles and determine whether there's actually anybody in the vehicle or not. Same with this one. It looks to be empty. And that's inside the truck. There can't be only a couple of pictures left now. We're at the 99, which is the last set of the series, which I decided I was going to do them all tonight just to have the full playlist available and we can move on. Because I got so, like last night and this morning I collected another 140 headlines. And then tonight, before I go to bed, I'm going to go through the cycle again, the 24 hours nuclear cycle, which means I'm probably going to get another 80 headlines, which means I'm over 4,000 headlines behind in the news cycle now. I will get to every one of them, right, at some point in the next number of months. I'll be here doing 3 and 4 hour shows day after day. We'll get through it at some point. And if it's a lie, right, if they write an article on nuclear and it's a lie, and I find it, I challenge that lie, move on to the next story, right? And sad and horrific thing is every single story that's about nuclear or Fukushima is going to be saturated with propaganda. It's just surreal, and nobody's ever done that before. They challenged that official narrative. So the last series of pictures are not even pictures at all. They're just, it's like steamy glasses on. You can't see anything. Way to go, TEPCO, you sack of crap. And this is Reactor 1 right there in the background of that. And so that's the remote control truck. They're inside of this truck, rather. That box is put on the back of that truck, and they're operating heavy machinery from right there, which is this machinery's right there, obviously, right? They're controlling it, and you can see the cameras on the top of the truck. There's a set of cameras there, another set of cameras there. There's a Wi-Fi device type singles. And so this is highly radioactive stuff. This is that the administration building or something? All the windows on this side are blown out, and Reactor 1 is over on that side. We're almost only a couple of pictures away. I'm assuming anybody that's texted me this hour of the night is about Fukushima. Take your sunshine. Hugs for you, honey. Love you too. I'm a sunshine wolf. Saying stick it to the bastards. Job well done, Dana, because we're through it now. That's the truck. You can see the cameras on the roof of it. Type of shit jobs, man. That's one of them right there. I guess they're using the drone to get that picture. We might be able to zoom in on this one this time. Yeah, if you're doing something like that right there using remote control cranes, it's because that stuff is lethal doses. And whoever's got the job to go up and take the picture, can you imagine? Get out there and take some pictures for TEPCO. I don't want to go. And they finally going to give us a couple clean pictures before it's over, are they? They're crazies, man. 273 counts per minute. Up there. Wow. That sucks. Well, that's it, is it? That's the last picture. Oh. I really never thought that day was going to come. 2 Danas. So pieces out of Sieverts. Typical done nothing for 2 years. And so all of these stories with Sieverts and Sieverts and Sieverts everywhere. Labor shortages, fear over radiation. Deadly Easter eggs generating higher radiation. 10 Sieverts an hour is a lethal dose, by the way. The holes and cracks in the grounds are terrifying. In fact, webcams were showing endless steam coming up, and the steam turned out to be 4.7 sieverts per hour in that particular story, but there were 6 places at over 10 sieverts an hour. The steam coming out of the ground, the whole site disappears in lethal doses of steam. And so it was a crazy series. And so how did we do? We're going to end the poll. 61 votes, 95% of the people. Should victims who worked at the Fukushima nuclear meltdown for one single day get a pension for life? Hello, nuclear industry, are you paying attention? 61 votes. We're going to end that poll here in a second. Get your votes in the next few moments before I end it. UN says no adverse health effects. Why are you using the air 150 kilometers from the plant is as radioactive as it is up close. They say no adverse health effects last year on the anniversary. Extreme increase in mortality caused by cardiac diseases. Death rates might give the creeps to some people. Was in just 1 month period in this one community was an extra 12,700 people died of heart attacks. I think that qualifies as a lot of harm, right? That's just for one single month in a single community. Okay, well, let's call it an end to the poll. Just end it. Yeah, EPA shut off the United States Environmental Protection Agency's monitors. It was the EPA, and who would have given the order? Whoever was in charge of the EPA at that time. But it was actually, it was the nuclear industry, right? And we have a whole lot of headlines on that, actually, that might probably have been there for tonight's show, but we're not going to get to it. And so we're just going to end the show tonight. I'm burnt out. There's been long shows all week. These are very hard shows to do. Tonight's not a bit better. 2 hours and 10 minutes or something. Two hours and 10 minutes. But when you're on my end and you're talking about the subject, it's there's a lot of stress, right, when you're each pictures, because you understand how many people are being harmed and the significance, and that the lie they're telling, the actual propaganda, right, that they're regurgitating is really shocking. Dan in the sun says water bottles should be used to protect them, which is a pun because a school, Kuriyama, which is 34 kilometers away from a nuclear power plant, the primary school lines the outside and inside walls with boxes of bottles full of water so the kids get less dose in the school. Instead of evacuating the kids, the nuclear industry refuses to let them evacuate. So that's a terrifying. Let's call it a night, shall we? Should I give a quick shout out to everybody? Why not? Might as well do it. Because it's 10 after 12, midnight. It's after midnight where I'm to. Diana Sunshine Wolf, thank you, Diana. Hope you have a nice night. Chelsea, and Dana Nasana, and Patrick, Albert, good night everybody. God bless everybody, hugs for everybody. Thinker, Timeless Truth. Anybody I missed, my apologies. Peaceware. Just gonna scroll through the names quickly. Chet Austin. Hi Chet. Anna C3. Ease. Good night everybody. I'm scrolling up through the comments. We'll come back down to the most recent ones in a few moments. James Lucid. Albert, Robert, the Pennies, 46, Richard. Good night, everybody. Ease, I think we already said that. Sandra Churchill, good night, everyone. Have a great night, a great day tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. We put out a lot of information this week, my goodness, eh? I just burnt out each day, but I'm happy that I'm getting this stuff out there. It's brutally cold the last couple of days here, shockingly cold. Very difficult to get comfortable when it's so cold, right? I'm a bit of a wimp when it comes to super cold here. Ella, good night, Ella. Mark Rogo, bro, I don't know, butcher people's names. That's what I'm really. One thing I'm good at is butchering people's names. Warren, that's a joke. I'm usually pretty good, but I do. Oh, did I miss anybody? Everybody watching this later and sitting back right now, hugs for you folks. And Katja. God bless everybody. Have a great night and a great day tomorrow. I'll only serve one king, Lori. Did I say hi to Nancy? I think we're done at the start. And Colette, I remember saying hi to her earlier. Lots of people chatting tonight. That's great to see. Yeah, don't forget the thumbs up, folks, if you can. It's a huge deal. And Valdi, Poolman, good night, everybody. SCH. Jaffas, Jafas. Soul Jacket, welcome. Beepa, gotta go. Sorry, Beepa. Remind everybody, there's links at the bottom of the description if you want to donate. There's only two ways you can donate to me. Both of them are at the bottom, the very bottom of the description under my videos. They're directly to me. And that was a good show. We got through it. That's already joined onto the playlist. There's a link below to that playlist of all the videos. And there's also links below. You can go download all the pictures yourself from that link. It's at TEPCO. Just make sure you get a shower after. Hugs for everybody. We see everybody. Hopefully tomorrow night for the last show of the week. I'm pretty burnt out. In fact, I'm incredibly burnt out. But that's the path we chose, right? And it's okay. I'm pretty sure we'll do it again tomorrow night. There's a great poll tonight. We've done exceptional on the poll, over 60 votes on the poll. We got 49 thumbs up, which is unusual because I'm censored, which means I got 1,000 thumbs up, I guess. Hugs for everybody. God bless everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Have a great night and a great day tomorrow. Take care.
Alle Menschen werden früh